Hello, fellow translators. So this is a video that's pretty impromptu, and the main reason for this video is, here, let me get it. I got a new microphone and I wanted to test it out, so I'm testing it out. But this is something that I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and so I finally got the chance. I don't have any nifty slides or anything, but I'm just going to talk about it. And it's something that has to do with networking. If you are like me and you don't like networking, I don't like networking. I've never liked it. I don't like attending these meetings or associations or trying to go out there and meet people and hand out my business card and do all that stuff. I really don't like it, but it's something that's sort of needed. I even have a course called How to Network for Introverts, but this has nothing to do with that, actually. This has nothing to do with networking per se. And that's why I like it. And it's a very personal story in that it happened to me. So let's get into it and let me talk about what I went through, and then I'll talk about the lessons you can get from it. And so what happened was I was a translator. I assume pretty much like you guys, just translating. And usually in my spare time, I would go online and I would chat with other translators, like on LinkedIn. A lot during this time on pros.com, I was pretty active in the forums, on some Facebook groups, stuff like that. And I recognized that I liked chatting with these people, these other translators, and obviously it was interesting exchanging information and all that. But I never saw them as a source of jobs because they don't offer jobs. They're in my same boat. If anything, they're competitors. They're not really competitors, but yeah, they're definitely in my same boat. And they're not the people offering translation jobs to other people. And so I never saw them in that way. Now, what would happen every now and then is I would get contacted by my clients or someone random asking me to perform a translation in some language combination I did not operate in, right? Or in something that had nothing to do with me. And so I would either kind of ignore it or say, no, I can't handle it, or that's it. Now, a couple times they say, we need a good French translator. And I knew a good French translator. So I say, look, I can't help you, but why don't I put you in touch with so-and-so? He's a good French translator. They'd be like, okay, cool, thanks. And that's it. I did this a few times, and what happened one day was there was a German translator, and I did the exact same thing. I got contacted for a German translation. I got in touch with him and I said, hey, do you want to handle this? And he wrote back, he's like, yes, that sounds excellent, I'm available for that. How does 10% sound? A 10% commission on it. I was like, yeah, sure, sounds great, okay. And I kind of left it at that. And then so he paid me. In fact, it was a multi-month job. So for a couple months, I was getting his 10%. And so I got curious later. I asked him, I was like, I've mentioned other jobs to other people before, and they never even brought up a commission. Like, is this usually how you operate? And he said, yes, I prefer to operate this way. He said, it's fair because it's a job I otherwise would not have. And I got it, thanks to you. So I'm happy to pay the 10%. B, I see it as reciprocal. If I get something Italian to English that I cannot handle, I'll send it to you. And then, you can pay me a 10% finder's fee as well. And I was like, yeah, that makes absolute sense to me. And from then on, that's what I did. When I would get a job and it was for someone else that I knew, then I would ask them, are you interested? And I would say, look, how about we do this reciprocal percentage thing? And I would say, after a while, I would say, this is usually how I operate. I operate by doing this 10% commission either way, usually 10%. It hovers around there. And that's how I would operate from then on. And especially, and I have to say, after a while, what happens is you kind of get a group of translators that you work well with and you trust. And these were really the starts of my agency for me, because after a while, I realized I did have a good kind of Rolodex of translators. That's an outdated term, I guess. But anyway, and these translators that I could trust, and I realized I could expand into an agency. But yeah, that's another story. But I did find this very useful when I was pretty much toward the beginning, and I was still growing. And in terms of getting new jobs, because suddenly there was this extra incentive and people kept you top of mind because they knew they could get a little percentage. And it was the exact same thing for me. You can be sure that all the translators I worked with whom I had this commission deal, they were top of mind anytime I got any, or anytime I came across any request in their language combination. So I'll end my story there. Now let's get into what this means for you. First of all, I think it's quite obvious. If you're in the same situation, why not try something similar, right? And, so if you get a request and it's not in your language combination, not in your specialization, something like this, but you do know someone who could handle it, why not try to come up with a reciprocal deal like this? And in my experience, everyone's always been fine with it. There've been a couple of people who couldn't do it, but to be honest, I'm not sure that they had an issue with the commission. Like a couple of times people are just busy and they can't handle it, and that's fine. But some things to keep in mind. First of all, don't spam people. Like, you cannot just take some random request you find online and you'll see these stupid spammy requests like, we need translators in all languages or something like that. You can't send that out and ask people for commission for that. And that's because they won't take you seriously, and then they'll think you're trying to scam them as well. And so it really reflects badly on you. So don't do anything like that. Also, make it very clear that obviously you're not going to get paid unless it works out. If they contact the client and nothing works out, then that's it. And that's fine. You know, it should be fine with everyone. But yeah, it's something you have to take seriously. You can't just hope that this is your new way of making money or anything like that, because again, things can go bad both ways. It could be a bad client or it could be a bad translator if you don't know them well. And so that could be an issue. So just make sure everyone you're dealing with is serious. Problems can happen and that's fine, but make sure that everyone you're dealing with is serious. And as long as it's translators that you've dealt with and you've talked to and you semi-know and you've interacted with, and as long as it's clients that you've had or you've dealt with before, then it's fine. Another thing that I would bring up, if you want to take it one step further, that I never did this until I became an agency, but later with agencies, it's actually, you see this, is you can double dip. What do I mean by double dipping? I mean, the agency says, hey, we need this French to German translator, and you're not a French to German translator, but you know a good one. You say, look, I can't help you with this, but I am part of an association of all these good translators, and I know a lot of, professional translators who can handle this. Let me find the best one for you, and I charge a finder's fee. If that's okay, then I'm happy to find the right person. Obviously, once again, you only pay me if it works out. Otherwise, no worries. And usually they're like, yes. Remember, the fact that you are friends with these translators, you know how translators operate, what to look for, and the type of specialization they need and everything like that. That's really good knowledge that most end clients do not have at all. And it's a big headache for them to find the right translator. If they can sort of hand that off to someone else, you're doing them a very big favor. And so don't be afraid to double dip. And you can see how you feel. If you feel a bit embarrassed or shy about it, you can ask for lower commissions or this, that, and the other. But don't sell yourself short, and my recommendation is to try this out. So try it out with the translators you already know, that you trust, that you work well with. See if it works out. I think it's best to contact them once you have a job in hand and say, hey, how about this job? But you could do it ahead of time and just say, hey, from here on out, do you want to operate this way? And see what they say. And also, don't be afraid to double dip. My recommendation is try it out. And the last thing to do, though, is once again, just be above board with everything and realize that things sometimes don't work out. If they don't work out, you don't get paid, and that's fine. That can also be somewhat leverage, if you will. If you recommend a translator and then they abscond, like they disappear or they end up not being good at all and the client's not happy at all, and they complain to you about it, you can say, look, I'm sorry, I had no idea. How about this? You don't owe me any finder's fee. Let's just leave it at that. I'm sorry about that. Or it could go the other way. If the translator says, oh, you sent me the job, but the client was hell, it took him forever to pay me, and they were so bossy, and they were contacting me in the middle of the night. I really didn't like them at all. In that case, he can be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I had no clue. I thought they were going to be decent. Look, how about this? You don't owe me any commission. I feel bad about this. That way it gives you a little leverage in that sense too, that you don't automatically look bad if the other party is bad. But don't spam people. Like you want to recommend people who you at least have a good feeling about based on your interaction with them. Anyway, that's it. That was my excuse for trying out this new microphone. I really hope it worked. I forgot to test it. I tested it once, but not for this recording. So I really hope I don't have to redo this whole thing. But I do hope you find this useful. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. If it's something that you think you'll try. I think it's a great way to network, especially when you're online and your only interaction is with people online. And you're already interacting on LinkedIn or wherever it is with other translators. So let me know what you think. I really want to know your thoughts. And otherwise, I'll talk to you next time. Okay, thanks. Bye. Savedum.